the diagnosis probably saved my book because it allowed me to step back for a bit and give myself, as you aptly described, some grace and time to formulate a system.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sarah Rosette.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show we have
Liz Long.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
It's a really good interview.
Yeah, we talked with her about, she discovered late in life she has ADHD, and she'd gone through some very dramatic and traumatic and stressful things. And she talked about how she's incorporated all that into her life and her work. Like she helps people through difficult times and kind of coping mechanisms that she uses and overcoming self-doubt. So yeah, it was a really good interview.
It was a very good interview. Yeah.
Yeah. And because of the title of her book, this episode is a little bit different. Normally our episodes are very PG rated. This one has a little language in it. So just be aware of that in case you're expecting something. Yeah. Especially you're expecting certain things. So not, anything super explicit, but just FYI, letting you know right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And the corporate sponsor this week is Xero. Use discount code Wish I'd Known Then 20 and get 20% off a Xero subscription for 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But let's see. Do we have any? We're recording this pretty soon after we recorded the last episode because of holidays and 4th of July and stuff. So do you have any news?
Well, the only news I have is I've got 2 more days of swimming lessons. And I was a guest on the Romance Writers Therapy podcast. And it was such a fun experience. And we had a really great talk about branding and, all the things that, you go through in life. And but yeah, it was really great. So you can check that out if you'd like.
We'll put a link in the show notes for it.
Yeah, it was just Marty V. It was a fun interview with her. So you can check that out. But really that's all. Oh, well, I do have one more thing. Just now uploaded the paperback covers to my new covers to my books 2 months after I got
the new covers. Yeah.
I've been putting it off because it just, it's one of those ADHD traits. It seems insurmountable and it took me less than, it took me about 30 minutes to do. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
But you got that done.
I did it.
And it may not have been on the timing that you wanted, but then it's done and you got it done. So I'm looking at, because I saw this thing online the other day and I thought it was a really good tip. It was like, use this 3-3-3 method, 3 hours on your most important project, 3 shorter tasks, and 3 maintenance activities to get things done. And I was like, I think that's really good, because sometimes those projects that like you just need to go in and upload a cover. It's not going to take that long, but it does take a while, because especially if you haven't done something like that in a while, sometimes you got to get the login and get your.
Oh yeah. The first one took longer than the others, but so I guess it's an encouragement, just do the thing, but it's so hard. And that, and there was something else. I can't remember. Nothing major, just stuff, but
and partly too, it's because we haven't we're recording so close to the last one. We don't have a lot going on new, right. But I didn't know about that podcast. I will check that out because it sounds fun. We'll put a link in the notes, so that'll be fun. I haven't been doing much. I'm getting ready for the release on my store. The other thing we're doing is don't ask me why we're doing this in July, but we're doing some painting and working in the garage and moving things around. I'm like, why are we doing this in July in Houston? I
Exactly.
know. So like we're getting up super early because it's at least a little bit cooler then. So yeah, that's been our project for a while. And I'll be so glad when that's done. And yeah, I remember last time we talked about past Sarah and past Jamie making decisions. I'm like, that was a bad
Yeah.
thing. We should, past Sarah should have said, let's do this in like February, not July. But anyway,
Exactly.
yeah. So doing that, and then I had something about with the release on my store. One thing I'm decided I'm going to do is I'm going to put it out there that if the first 50 orders I get on my store, I'm going to mail everybody an envelope, and it's going to have like bookmarks and stickers and kind of just swag things that I have.
Yeah.
Because I can do that with since I'm using Shopify, even the ebook purchases, I will have a physical address with that.
Yeah.
And so I can just look at it and then I can have those ready to go and sign them, put what I need to in there, put a stamp on them and mail them out. And I think that'll be something, a little incentive to get people to order early and kind of get things going. So,
hey, I just saw something yesterday. Sticker Mule has coasters.
Oh, cool.
And a coaster with your cover on it might be really cute. They can put their tea on it.
Yes.
You have tea drinkers.
That is true.
Yeah, I just thought that would be so cool to have coasters to give out as, swag. I don't know.
And that's funny because I have on my desk, I can't remember even what I ordered with this, but I do have a coaster that is not like super fancy, but I do have it on my desk. And so that might be a really good item. When we talked about that in the past, one of the things that was mentioned was to have something that people want, they'll hang on to.
Yeah.
Don't give them things that they're not going to use or just throw away. And so the coasters might be a really good idea. So I'll have to check that out.
I was going to say,
yeah. So let's see. In other news,
50 for $21. I don't know.
Oh, that's pretty good, I would think.
Yeah, it says normally 65 plus free shipping. So
yeah, and they'd be pretty light, when you're mailing stuff.
Yeah,
weight
you
counts.
don't want anything heavy.
Yeah, so I might have to check into that. It's a good idea. So let's see. In other news, we don't have any new supporters, but thanks to all our continuing supporters. And if you want to support the podcast, you can get access to previous supporter episodes and the Slack group.
Yep.
And the corporate sponsor pays for like the hosting and like you said last week, keeping the lights on. And the supporters are paying for our time and just really letting us know that you enjoy this and want us to keep doing it. So we appreciate it.
We do. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And no new text messages because I think today the episode just went out when we asked. So I'm still curious if anybody wants to text us and let us know what speed you listen to podcast on, because I think that is, we talked about this last time, very surprising. Jamie listens slow and I listen fast. And that's like complete opposite of our personalities.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to enjoy it.
And see, I'm like, I enjoy it, but if it goes slow, I feel like, oh, this is too slow, which is, I never do anything else where I'm like, oh, this is too slow.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know why it is with podcasts.
I know. That's so funny.
Yeah. So let us know. Curious if everybody's like Jamie and listens slow and I'm the only one that listens fast.
No, I think most people listen to it faster. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got our corporate sponsor this week.
Yes.
It's Xero, accounting software made for small businesses like indie authors. With Xero, you have everything in one place. You can store documents, capture expenses and receipts via email. You can scan files from your mobile and more. Via Xero's robust integrations, you can connect Xero to your bank and easily sync financial information, as well as have access to more than 1,000 apps in its app store. And there are different plans to suit your business, and all pricing plans cover accounting essentials with room to grow. And I use it. I really love it. It's super easy. It imports the transactions automatically and makes reconciling really easy. I use their onboarding call, and that helped me get my little things that I had questions about. I got to talk to an actual person, and it's just a great accounting solution. I really like it. So you can use discount code Wish I'd Known Then 20 and get 20% off a Xero subscription for 3 months. And the link is in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you, Zero, for being our sponsor. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So
do you have anything else?
I think we're good to go.
Yep. Me too. Me
All
too.
right. Well, here is Liz. Today we are really excited to talk with Liz Long. Hi, Liz. How are you?
Hi, I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for having me.
We're excited you're here. I'm looking forward to this conversation, and we'll let Sarah read your bio and then we'll get started.
In 1968, Liz Long's life took a tragic turn when a close family member, Linda White, went missing. 5 agonizing years later, Linda's body was discovered. Her case stands as one of Canada's longest unsolved crimes. At 58, Liz confronted her adult depression by checking into an inpatient treatment center for healing. With unwavering grit and a touch of humor, Liz untangled the complexities of her past, realizing that childhood coping mechanisms were never meant to be permanent. Now at the forefront of mental health advocacy, Liz shares her journey and inspires others to confront their own storms and discover resilience within.
Yeah. That's tough, all of that, but I'm so glad that you've made it through, and we're so glad you're here to talk about it. So how did you get into writing?
Well, thank you. Writing was not something that was ever on my bucket list. Truly, I didn't go to school for journalism. I was an avid reader as a child and young adult. I enjoyed books of all different genres, but writing one was not something I aspired to do. And you touched a little bit on it in my bio, and I do believe that all of our, and particularly my experiences have brought me to where I am today and have made me who I am today. And after I got out of the place where I checked myself in, I spent the first several months reintegrating back into the real world and my life and reevaluating what my priorities were and what I wanted to do. And I decided to ditch my present career and lean into mental health advocacy. And that involved sharing my story. And the best way to share a story that's a little longer, as it was really, at the time, 55 years of my life, I embarked on writing a book.
And that's how you did it. That's
That's
amazing.
how and
That's just
why I
amazing.
did
Yeah, yeah.
it.
That's crazy.
It's terrific. Well, we like to ask everyone, what is your definition of success?
Oh, that's changed a lot throughout. Well, basically since my big mental health issues. Today, I would say my definition of success is living with peace, love, freedom, and joy. And in order for me to do that, I had to find myself again. I had to learn who I really was, and then I had to learn to love all those parts before I could find that. And yes, there's a certain amount of financial resources required for everybody's basic needs, but I've learned that beyond a level of sustenance, that's not what makes me happy. That's not my definition of success. I would also include, I think, in that today, reaching as many readers as I can and helping them become aware of where they are and setting them up to find their own path out of a place that I call in my book Victim Town and on their way to Freedomville. So to help and inspire other people find their own success and happiness.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, what do you wish you'd known about writing a book when you started writing a book?
Well, I knew nothing. I knew nothing about writing a book when I started. Um, I was referred to a wonderful group, a cohort called Top Three Authors. A woman by the name of AJ Harper runs this program, and I believe she does 2 workshops annually. And I signed up for that, and that that was one of the best things I did. She specializes mostly in nonfiction, and that community provided the instruction, the know-how, the accountability, and the reassurance, the support that really helped me get solidly on my way to finishing the book.
Yeah, that's great. That's, having a group. I know I had that. I didn't know anything about writing a book either when I started writing, and I had a group and they taught me to write, frankly. And I mean, I could tell a story, but I couldn't really write it down very well. And so that support was so important, in moving that process forward. Excuse me.
Well, what about assumptions? What assumptions did you make at the beginning of your writing career, and looking back, did they turn out to be right or wrong?
Well, I really try to steer away from assumptions, because in my experience with life and with writing and any other project, almost entirely 100% of them are wrong. So it doesn't serve us to come up with some things that are really just going to set ourselves up to be disappointed. So I tried to keep an open mind, and I think maybe that was a little easier for me to do because I knew nothing, literally. Right? I think if you have some experience or you've done it once, you might, from your own experience, have assumptions about what it might be like to do it again. I mean, there were a lot of myths about the whole publishing industry that I wouldn't call them assumptions necessarily, but things that, well, maybe they are, I guess, things that I sort of thought that's the way it was. I mean, without holding on firm to an attachment to that outcome, but like that's sort of what I thought. And what I learned was vastly different. And I think it's also an industry that is morphing and changing fairly quickly, and has gone through significant changes, in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned one of your definitions of success was getting your book in front of as many people. Like, how are you doing that? What is the kind of the way you're able to get your book in front of people that could benefit from it?
Yeah, that brings me back to one of the myths or assumptions. I thought publishers would do a lot more marketing and publicity for authors, and I suspect they might if you're, Brene Brown or Stephen King, and you've got a sure bet on your hands.
Right.
So mostly, I'm leaning into being me, fully and authentically me. And I like the marketing part, and I enjoy being a guest on podcasts and meeting wonderful hosts, such as you lovely ladies, Jamie and Sarah, and all your audience. So I'm doing a lot of podcast guest spots. I also started one of my own on YouTube, Spotify, called Navigating Shitstorms. Shocker. And I'm doing readings at libraries, and I'm doing book signings at bookstores, and the whole social media has been a large part of my marketing campaign. And that one was a little bit more challenging for me to wrap my head around, because fundamentally, I don't think social media is a really great thing for mental health and society. And I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole. However, it is undeniably one of the best mediums to promote your book. And here's what shifted my perspective around it and has enabled me to embrace it. If an author believes that their message is important, that their story is going to help people, make a difference in someone else's life, whether it's nonfiction or even entertainment as pure fiction. If you really believe that, and I can't imagine many authors do not, because it's a very long and arduous journey.
Correct.
If you're not, bought into it yourself. But if you truly believe that, then I think it's your your responsibility
Mm.
to do everything in your power to get that product into the eyes or the hands of as many of your people to serve the world. Like if this is your gift to the world, then you need to get it out there.
Right.
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 And so when I view it as an in-service act, the social media reels I do and the posts and all of those things, and I infuse that too with the love and healing that I want my readers and my audience to feel, then it's easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
Well,
easier for me.
you're meeting the people who have a need with what you believe, pardon me, and hope is the solution for them. And so you have to go where they're at, and they're on social media. So I see that 100%. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Well, what's the most important lesson you've learned, like, I guess, in this process? And
Oh, to trust myself,
Mhm.
to trust in all outcomes, that
Mhm.
when roadblocks or challenges or shitstorms happen,
Mhm. Mhm.
that I'm meant to go through those, and that everything's always going to work out.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a tough
And
lesson.
we we haven't asked you, and you should tell us the name of your book since we're talking about
Oh,
those things right now. Yeah.
right. Yes. Thank you. My book is called Navigating Shitstorms: How to Find Your True Path When Life Gets Rough. And
Mhm.
the title was a long time coming, actually. My working title for the 18 months that I was writing and getting the work ready was Victim Town: An Unavoidable Destination and the Gifts It Offers. And I
Mhm.
always knew that was not going to be a final title, because the concept of victim town is not something anybody would understand
Yeah.
until and only after they read the book.
Mhm.
And my publisher came up with 4 or 5 options. And, they had a team of people, a researcher, psychologist, like titleist. And I wasn't happy with any of them. And I
Mhm.
gave them a little bit more direction, sent them away again, and they came back with some more. And still, I was thinking, no,
Mhm.
not even close.
Mhm.
And we actually delayed the pub date by a couple of months, 2 or 3 months. So they were generous around that. And I
Right.
started brainstorming with people that I knew and respected and had a creative bent. And it was with a girlfriend, Tina Petrelli, over coffee one day that we came up with the title. But I
Mhm.
see it in people's eyes. So I've been doing a lot of markets,
Mhm.
wellness markets, and different themes, and promoting and selling my book at these places. And as people walk by, I see it in their eyes. They read the title of the book, and then they have this, like, this knowing, and they're like, oh yes,
Mhm.
that resonates with me.
Mhm.
And so I think that I forget what the question was.
Well, you were just telling us how the title came to
The
be.
title, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I love most about the title, is the recognition I see when
Yeah.
people read the title, and they laugh about it, as they can almost 100% relate to their own life.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Because
Yeah.
we've all been in one.
Right? I
You
know.
know, or two or more.
Or
Yeah.
more.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And
Absolutely.
the writing process itself, and the author journey itself is fraught with, shitstorms
Mhm.
often.
Yeah.
It's one
Yeah.
of the things about life that is unavoidable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And, I mean, the thing, our listeners know this, but for the last 18, well, more than 18 months, I've been in a very bad place because my sister passed away. And um, so it's, you can't see those lessons until you come through it, or at least to a point where it's not storming all the time. It's like, it's only been recently that I've been able to look back and go, okay, I can see this. I can see that if this were to happen, or something like this would happen again, I would do these things maybe differently. And most of it is just giving myself grace and taking expectations off myself while I'm dealing with something that frankly was unimaginable. And so, but I like the title because I can immediately see, that in my head, and I've lived that. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you.
And
Thank you.
well, so one of the places in Victim Town is the Sorrow Swampland.
Mm,
And sometimes we get catapulted into that. And all of the places in Victim Town it's not a bad thing to stop in and visit there. There's the Guilt and Shame Cafe, the Control Factory, the Denial Trails, and lots of places that most readers are going to find familiar. And it's a place that we can go where we go until where we're not quite ready to face the pain. And that's okay. But problems arise when we get stuck there.
Yeah.
For years and
It's
years.
a place to visit, not live. Yeah.
You got it. You got it.
It's a destination you want to leave.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
This blends in great to our next question, which is, what is the biggest change you've had to make in your thinking? Because it sounds like you've gone through quite a bit of personal growth. So what's the biggest thing you've had to change in your mindset?
There were a lot of concepts I came up with in writing the book that, yes, came out of my own journey and were in service to the reader, but then I had to live them myself. And walking my talk and leaning into those things when I too am faced with a shitstorm has required a little bit of changing my thinking. I talk about learning to love ourselves, but the full definition is learning to love ourselves without limits or conditions, right? So I'm keeping an open mind about all of that, and so one of the things it just randomly occurred recently. Most women have issues with their physical body. There's something about it we don't like. Like, yes, I love myself, but just not so much in a bikini anymore. So learning to embrace all the parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great and hard. So yeah.
Yes.
I get it. Well, what if you were starting over today, what would you do differently? Anything?
So yes, I'm going to share one shitstorm, if you will, that occurred fairly early on in the writing of the book. And had I known then, I would have done things very, very differently. And it came about from a casual conversation with a friend of mine who was describing an issue with a young coworker that she had, and she had ADD, and she was describing the way that they were interacting and the way she approached her work, and and some frustration around all of that. And as she's telling me all these things that she's doing, I'm saying, well, wait a minute, I do that, and what's so wrong with that? And then the conversation morphed to, well, maybe you've got ADD too. And I thought, oh, maybe I do. So next step, Dr. Google, take a few assessments, and they all came back a range between 70 and 90% affirmative. And then I called my family physician and went through the same process with him, and then was referred to a psychiatrist. And long story short, at the age of 59, and in the early stages of writing this book, it was confirmed that I had ADHD. Now, I mean, I'd lived a long and full life, and I've raised two boys independently, and I'd owned a house and had my own business. And I had these really, really robust systems and checklists for everything. It was how I was able to function with that. And I always thought that I didn't have a great memory. Well, I know I don't have a great memory. And that's part of my childhood trauma, but that I wasn't organized enough, and that I had trouble focusing, and that, it's in some way my brain was just a little bit deficient, right? Versus the average person. And the diagnosis at that stage, first of all, after I got over the labeling of it, it was a bit of a relief, because it kind of explained, some things. And it also gave me a little bit of confidence in that if I was able to, without knowing this was the challenge I had, go through and achieve a variety of different things, then certainly I could also do that with a book. So there were multiple times, like my laptop was perilously close to getting thrown in the lake. And it was my frustration in not having a system for writing a book, because it wasn't something I'd ever done before. And the management of the chapters and the files, and I mean, the finished product, I think, is around 63,000 words. That's a lot. And things would get lost, and I didn't know how to track stories or find stories or cut and paste, or like all of that, the logistics of managing the documents was overwhelming for me. And so the diagnosis probably saved my book, because it allowed me to step back for a bit and give myself, as you aptly described, some grace and time to formulate a system. So I had my own system, and that enabled me to, with much less frustration, and help, keep me focused, to get the project completed. Had I known I had ADHD when I started, I would have had that system before I started, and saved myself a lot of frustration.
Yeah. Yeah. I too have just been recently diagnosed, and I will tell you, my naming conventions for my files are so screwed up. I mean, they're just because at the time I think, oh, that's the perfect name. And then I go back and I can't find it because I can't remember what I named it. And it's not perfect because it's not in the right place. And so, I do that that is probably one of my biggest frustrations. In fact, last week I had a talk that I did in Oklahoma, and it was a talk I had done before, and I thought that I had lost it. Like, I thought, well, I guess I just didn't save it. And it's 2 days before the talk. Like, I had just not even worried about it because I knew I had it. I could not find it for a couple of hours. And then I finally found it. And it was 2 hours I didn't have to stress. If I had done it correctly and had the right systems in place, which I do a little bit better now, but back when I did the talk originally, I did not. So I get it.
I hear you. I feel you. I'm the same way with a lot of my files too. And as with everything, if we can just do it a little bit better than the last time, that's progress.
Kind of all we can do. Yeah.
Right? That's all anyone can do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I was just going to ask, do you have any tips or ideas or strategies that you use to help you with your ADHD? Because I know a lot of writers, I know a lot of people have that. And so is there any suggestions you have specifically for writing, like writing with ADHD?
So first of all, I think yes, there's some similarities with ADHD, but I also think there's also unique aspects of it for every single human. So what worked for me and my system, if you will, in the end, was I kept all the chapters as separate files until the very, very end. Then they were put together. So every chapter was a separate file. I really leaned into the navigation pane in Word. And I had titles and subtitles that were easily searchable, so I could find whatever it is I needed to find. And then, of course, those headings and subheadings are going to get reformatted in the final editing of the design. But I kept those until the very last minute. And the other thing, and this was a tip from AJ Harper, that was probably the thing that saved me the most, was when I was writing that first draft, she encouraged us to keep writing. So we all get to a place where we need to find a stat, or we need to find a number, or we need to remember something, or we need to expand on a story. But to do that and stop the flow is not really in our best interest to get the whole first draft out. And so she encourages us to insert a word that you would never use in your manuscript, but that you could search and just find all those little places to go back. So my word was cow. And because the word cow was never going to be in my book. It's a long story. I kind of like cows. I used to have this big fiberglass cow on my property. So when I was writing and I needed to look something up or find a reference, I would just type in cow, and then a quick little what I needed to do. And then I just keep going. And then when I was writing, if I wasn't feeling creative or in the mind to continue on a certain topic, I might just, open document and control search cow, and I'd find the first cow, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, I need to find some stats for this. And then I'd go and do that. Right. So it was, and then I'd take the cow out. So that was probably one way that my ADD brain could relax and let the creative juices keep flowing and writing, because I knew that I wasn't going to forget or wouldn't be able to find that place that I needed to go back and fix something or add something or look something up.
Okay. Yeah.
And then how did you deal with like a book, like you're saying, it's so long, it's such a long project. So how did you deal with keeping yourself going and staying motivated to complete that whole project?
Mm-hmm. The whole writing process, it really surprised me. I loved it. And I was in a fortunate position. So I started writing my book in about April of 21, and things were still locked down. And I was able to devote full-time hours towards this project. And I didn't have writer's block. I had frustration with more logistical and technology things. I never had the frustration about the actual writing. And it was fairly, I want to say easy, but it kind of was. It was pretty flowy.
You had something you wanted to share. You had something to say, right?
Yeah.
Something important. Well, let's talk about how your perspectives have shifted, and how viewing ADHD has, not as a deficit, but as kind of an elevated way of looking at things. Can you share that with us and how that's changed?
Every single person has been born with a body and a mind that has inherent benefits and great things about it, and also has inherent challenges. So that's one of mine. And I'm not a big fan of labels, other than how sometimes they can explain for us. And that knowledge is helpful. I have my systems, and I just lean into those.
Okay. And then when you're inspiring others, like, what are some things that you can do or say that really help to encourage, people to, one of the notes we have here is to embrace their uniqueness and choose positive mindset. Like, what are some of the steps you give to people to help them with that?
In my book, I talk a lot about the voices in our head, our internal dialogue. And we all have that conversation in our heads. And the places in Victim Town, I've given each of those places the voice that talks to us from that place a name. Control Factory, it's called the boss, and the Guilt and Shame Cafe is the maitre d'. But there's always that other voice that talks back. And I call that voice our heart voice. And that is the one that we were born with. That's the voice that is founded in love instead of fear. That's the voice that feels reassuring and hopeful. Whereas the victim town voices are the ones that make us afraid and feel small. That's the voice that says, nobody's going to want to read your book. What you have to say doesn't really matter. And, you're never going to get this done. So I teach some strategies for people to strengthen their heart voice, and then to listen to it more often and have the courage to act on that wisdom. And as it relates to writing, I think that for me, and again, everybody's got a unique path and journey, and they're writing about different things. But it goes back to the messaging and why are you doing this, and who's your reader, and how best can you serve your reader? And those were the questions that I would ask myself. Should I include this part in my book, or should I delete it? Or, what order should I put things in? It was always about what's in service to my reader.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because it gets your focus off of yourself. If you're thinking about the reader, and like we both mostly write fiction, so we're thinking about, will they enjoy this? Will it take them to another world, or let them experience a funny moment that they need in their life? So if we think about that, that gets us out of our own head where is this too wordy? Is this too short? Is this boring?
Yeah, exactly. And also from a flow standpoint too, is the reader going to understand this? I mean, when you're writing, you've got to, you know the big picture already. Right? Where it's
theoretically,
going.
Yes, but
well, I know things change. Everything changes.
Kinda. Fingers crossed.
Right? Yes. Yeah. So it's also, does the reader need to know this before this, or after this, or, I mean, I think fiction is requires a lot more talent and dedication to craft and planning than nonfiction does, and imagination too. So kudos to you guys. I love reading fiction.
Well, nonfiction also includes a lot of fictionalized story. I mean, like you use fiction elements in nonfiction to make it more personal and lively and everything.
For sure. I mean, every writer writes about what they know. And, which also poses an interesting question, about relationships and other people in writers' lives, are they going to be written about?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I love this. I just love the whole concept of, because, what I've learned is that the only way through a difficult time is through it.
Yes.
Try to go around it, but it's those storms seem to find you wherever you're at. And if you don't deal with it, so you kind of have to go through it. And I love the concept of the town, victim town, where you can rest there for a while, until you're, like you said, you're strong enough to move on. And I do love that concept. That's kind of beautiful to me.
Thank you. Yes, it's enabling a lot of people to wake up or realize where they are. And the other really great thing that came out of naming all the places in Victim Town, excuse me, is that the names create a new language that help to destigmatize mental health and to make it less vulnerable to open up conversations, either to express how we're feeling and what's going on with us, or to ask questions and open a conversation with people that we want to help and support. And when we can talk about it, mental health, then that's the first step of healing, right? We have to get it out into the open.
It helps normalize it somehow too.
Exactly.
To say, I'm just at this certain point, and I will move on to this other point later, but this is where I am right now. And it's not stigmatized as much, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jamie, what were you saying?
Well, this has been so awesome. Yeah. What were you going to say, Sarah?
Oh, I think we've got a little bit of a delay. So I'll go on to the next question. So we always like to ask everyone, what is the best thing you've done to set yourself up for success?
The best thing I've done, be myself, my whole self, and do more of the things that I enjoy doing. And I mean, as far as marketing and promoting my book goes, I just last week, so back in 2019 for a different industry, I took some public speaking training, and then COVID hit and that whole business got completely shut down. And I never actually had a chance to do it. I've never spoken in front live of a group of people, but on the weekend I did for the first time. There were about 20 people, and it was a reading and then thank you and a Q&A, and I had fun. I really liked it. So I'm going to lean into that and try it some more, maybe up the ante a little bit, do some practice, and then look for some for public speaking opportunities. But I was also prepared to, I was going to give it at least 5 tries. And I think that, every time we try something brand new and scary, the feelings of excitement and nervousness are almost the same. And so that's a choice as to how we view those feelings and those sensations in our body. So it takes, 4 or 5 attempts to really get a good handle on whether or not you like something. And I think if you like it, then do more of that. And if it's just not your jam, then don't.
Exactly.
Life's too short to do things that are you're not having fun or enjoying. And I think that when you lean into those things that you really do love, then you can't help but enjoy success with them.
I agree. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I think our listeners are going to really enjoy it. And we're so glad you're here. Tell everyone where they can find out more about you and your book and any speaking opportunities.
Thank you so much. Navigating Shitstorms can be found at all the places. Amazon, Kindle, Audible, Barnes & Noble in Canada, Indigo as well. And you can find me at lizlongwrites.com. And social media, if you just search Navigating Shitstorms, you'll find me.
Okay, very good.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing. We really appreciate it. And we will have all those links at wishidknownthenforwriters.com. And you can go to that same URL/support to support the podcast. And thanks to Alexa Larberg for editing and producing the podcast, and Adriel Wiggins for doing all the admin. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember our sponsor, Xero Accounting Software. Use code WishI'dKnown20 and get 20% off of Xero subscription for 3 months. Thanks for listening. Keep writing, and we'll see you next week.